Hey guys, my name is Ryan and welcome to HitScan and another Omen video, who are of course sponsors and PC providers of both the Overwatch League and the Overwatch World Cup. We of course were at BlizzCon last week and we of course were at the Overwatch World Cup, and whilst we were there after all of the crazy games and Team USA winning the whole shebang, I sat down with Team UK main tag Fusions to talk about how important the World Cup is, but I guess most importantly the meta at the moment, going over a very interesting strategy that Team USA ran, and generally what he can expect to see when it comes to balance and map changes over the next couple of months before Overwatch League Season 3 starts. You can find all the Fusions details in the description below, but let's get into the video.
Like, the World Cup's not for everybody, or like the Overwatch League isn't for everybody, so for those that haven't been watching them to keep up with any major shifts in hero popularity, like what would you say for you has been like the most standout thing that like, oh yeah, that could be interesting?
So the only real change in the last sort of few months or last few patches has been the Sigma nerfs, obviously, which makes him a bit weaker, and that is made spam comps a bit stronger, like the Farah Hanzo you saw a lot. You saw some people like USA playing some of the shield break comps. They had like the sim comp and stuff. So yeah, I think the Sigma nerfs were the only really significant thing. I mean, for the most part, people were just playing the Orisa Sigma comps. I think that Orisa is probably actually the hero of the two that is too strong right now. I think Sigma synergizes really well with Orisa for sure, but Sigma is like not as strong by himself. I think Orisa is really strong in general. Like even before the Sigma meta, Orisa Hog was played. Orisa by herself in role lock in 222 is incredibly strong. I think that they probably need to nerf her if they want to change this meta.
Sure, and I guess that kind of goes into the different questions of like Reinhardt and Winston and Hammond were used, but like where were they used or why were they used, I guess is probably like a better question. And is it just almost like cheese, I suppose, that they would be used in that situation?
Yeah, I think it is a bit cheesy the way they were used. I mean, USA had, obviously, in this World Cup, they had the Ryan, I think it was Ryan Sigma comp, they played with a Genji and a Symmetra, which was kind of weird, but the Ryan kind of fits into these comps because he can brawl a bit and he does have the shield, so it's a decent substitute for like an Orisa or a Sigma. The ball stuff and that sort of thing is more of a cheese. I think it's like gonna catch people off guard, and that's what happened in some of the matches that they were played. But overall, Orisa Sigma just way stronger than any other combo right now.
First of all, with USA, why the hell did they run Genji Symmetra? Like, I feel like there's probably like a really obvious answer to the synergy between the three heroes that you mentioned, but why would they do that, I suppose?
So I think the idea behind the Genji Symmetra comp is you play slow and you sort of chip away at their shields with the Symmetra a little bit, and in the neutral fights, the Sim ends up like with that microwave beam building up, doing a lot of damage. So if the enemy team doesn't have incredibly good tempo, it's actually very good at punishing people playing a little bit sloppy. And obviously, if you see that for the first time, you're going to panic because you're not going to have any idea how to play against it. So yeah, I think it's like a cheese, but it's like a really smart cheese because it punishes like tempo.
And then I guess like the Genji's almost like a hunted dog that he will just chase after like low health targets that have got a bit too close to dash out or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like the Genji is basically kind of like the substitute for the Doomfist in those sort of comps, but the Genji can sort of look to finish off targets a little bit more reliably, whereas the Doomfist, it's a bit more risky for him to go in when you have like a Ryan and no Orisa, because there's no pull synergy with the punches and stuff. And then when he gets Blade, it's pretty good with that comp because you can just sort of death ball into them.
Sorry to interrupt, but on this subject that Fusions went over, Jake actually gave a really good explanation to another reason why this composition worked so well and where the Genji's place in this composition was.
Either you're getting one shot or they're breaking your shield, so the heal orb isn't that useful. There's no like heavy sustained damage, or at least nothing you can't deal with the left click. So you start with the damage orb, and it's basically the way the USA strat works is that because they have Genji, they're just relying on you shooting the damage orb, and as long as they instantly reflect the damage orb and shoot their own damage orb, then you basically get a double damage orb flying into the choke. And the double damage orb is actually kind of insane. It's like so much damage. So the Moira, generally like the enemy team is not going to anticipate that, so the double damage orb might just like go through their team and just kill like a Moira or a Lucio, or at the very least make them so low that they have to retreat, which is what happened in the match. Like Bidosin realized, but he just had to run. Like he can't stay in once the double damage orb goes. He has to just get back or he's dead. So basically, SK couldn't even fight on the high ground. They had to give up that choke. And once the United States is camping now with a Ryan and a Sigma, you really can't come through, even with the Orisa. Just because Ryan is good if he's camping a corner.
We're probably going to do another full Omen video on this sometime this month, in like a week or so. Break it down a little bit more then, but as of right now, let's get back to fusions and the state of the game.
When it comes to this sort of meta, it's very only like applicable to the higher tiers. It's still very oppressive, but when it comes to playing stuff like Winston and like Reinhardt, which have been known for so long, they should be good against barriers in some capacity, right? Because Winston zaps through them with lightning, Reinhardt can just run past them. Like, do you feel that outside of the top 500 sort of range that stuff isn't as bad as, say, GOATS was, I suppose? And there's other options that you could play realistically?
Honestly, I think it is pretty bad. Like the Orisa Sigma, I think is actually too strong compared to the other tank options. I think if you have a team with a high level and it's like cheesing with a strategy and you guys have a really specific plan around like Ryan or Winston or something, then you might be able to make it work. But when it comes to ranked especially, just one, because of the ease of the heroes, but also two, because Orisa Sigma aren't just strong because of their barriers, they're so strong outside of that as well. Obviously Orisa has like the pull, which is like a mini grav, and the shift, which is like two of the best abilities in the game. And Sigma is just really good at outputting consistent damage. So like those two characters outside of the shields are also incredibly strong.
Just when the obvious thing to do, I suppose, would be to nerf Orisa, but some others have sort of mentioned like Diva's state in the game where, like when Roadhog was really good, a lot of teams started to shift over to play Orisa Diva, right? Because it was more like conservative and defensive. Like, do you think that there's other options that because they buffed Roadhog recently against Sigma, which did help. Are there any other like hero changes to the likes of Diva that you could see that would make things a little bit less Orisa based?
I think if you start to buff the sort of dive DPS heroes, you'll definitely see a shift away from Orisa. I mean, Orisa has like obviously the fundamental flaw in that she kind of has to stay still for 10 seconds with her barrier. So obviously faster based comps will make Orisa a bit more obsolete. But right now I think it's going to be really hard to buff DPS, especially with Moira being so good and Reaper and Mei being such good substitutes to kill like dive tanks and stuff like that. So I think buffing dive heroes, nerfing Moira, and nerfing like Reaper and Mei would also decrease Orisa a lot.
And are there any other heroes that you think like based off like being dived that would be would help in that capacity? Because like Diva's a good example of like if Diva's used more, then Moira's a lot weaker because the orbs get eaten a lot more consistently. Any heroes that you think are sort of key to dive being used maybe more and Orisa being used less?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is what everyone would say, but Tracer being really good, obviously being able to put out consistent damage makes dive infinitely better because Tracer is such a consistent DPS hero. So if you can get Tracer in the meta, things start to revolve around her. And obviously if Genji was in a state where he could go in and get value out of blades without dying, because right now Genji just sort of dies when he goes in, then that would obviously make dive really good and make these slower comps a bit more obsolete.
I don't want to get you in trouble, but like Overwatch 2 is a big focus on PvE. Not so much are you sort of scared as like a PvP focused player, but like what are your sort of opinions on that? Because you do play like PvE games, like we've spoken about Borderlands and stuff like that as an example. Like, so what are your sort of opinions on Overwatch 2 and I guess the announcements of BlizzCon really?
I mean, I'm a really big fan of like PvE games and co-op in general. So I'd really like to see them take a sort of almost like Destiny type route with the Overwatch PvE and Overwatch 2. I hope they make it exciting. They advertised it as highly replayable, and I hope it is highly replayable. So we'll see when it comes out. From a pro perspective, it's a bit interesting. I mean, I think I saw Seagull tweet about it and say that it's not really Overwatch 2 so much as like an expansion, and I think that resonates pretty well with me as well. Like, I don't think it's really a second game. I'm really glad that they're adding new heroes, they're doing balance changes. There was talk about removing Paris and Horizon from the competitive pool as well, which is good. So they are making a lot of changes, and it's clear to see that they're listening to feedback, but I don't really think it's as much an Overwatch 2 for the PvP perspective, at least.
It sort of feels like you sort of mentioned Destiny 2, that it feels like that capacity that Destiny 1 was a great way for Bungie to try out stuff. Destiny 2 is then moving to PC, moving to different like platforms. but then they've stayed on Destiny 2 for the future. Like, that's personally how I see it, of being Overwatch 1, maybe we can't monetize in the same way because loot boxes are a bit of a dicey area and they probably don't make a lot of money for Blizzard, but in the future they can focus on this new game that might have like a battle pass, has PvE, PvP stuff, and like Destiny, they had like Gambit and they had new expansions and stuff on top of that. So I guess that's kind of what you're hoping, but I guess the worry is that like PvP in Destiny, it becomes like one small section of the game, whereas that can't really happen in Overwatch because you have the Overwatch League and all these investors in like a big PvP focused game.
It's interesting, right? Because it feels like they're kind of trying to balance competitive and casual at the same time. And I don't think that's really something that you can do with Overwatch. Obviously, you look at examples like Riot Games, where they've balanced League basically around the competitive scene. And that's like the competitive scene there is thriving right now. Then you've got games that are more like PvE experience, like Destiny. It's more based around the casual player base and that sort of thing.
And they get a lot of flack for like being the balance between PvE and PvP, right, as well. So it's like you have to balance two different things.
Yeah, I just think that they need to prioritize one. I'd like to see them prioritize the competitive scene more. It looks like they're trying to make changes to it, but at the same time, they're putting a lot of resources into PvE, and I'm not sure if it's going to pay off for the PvP, the Overwatch League scene. So we'll see.
At least for the time being, like between now and then as well. Like, but I guess the good thing about it is if you are focusing on more casual playing PvE, that the PvP could be made a lot more like competitive centric, because for those that still enjoy Overwatch but may not want to play competitive, then they have other game modes to play, right? So there's always that side of the coin that they could do, like double down on it almost.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I really hope that they do make what they marketed it as highly replayable, because if these players are coming in to play this PvE game mode, it's going to encourage more people to play PvE, and it's just going to keep more people in the game in general. I mean, I'm personally really excited to play it. I hope that it is replayable, because if it is, you know, like the numbers of Overwatch are going to go up in general, and that's always going to bring more people into the PvP as well, so we'll see.
Any final things that you sort of wanted to go over? Like, the meta seems relatively the same, if not a few like outliers and a few different compositions. Like, sort of what are you hoping for going into the 2020 season as well?
Mostly for me, I'm just hoping that they start bringing out some bigger balance changes for 2020, like they have in the recent balance update where they changed a bunch of stuff. The devs are definitely listening. They're removing Paris and Horizon from the pools.
At least for the time being. Like, they could do like a Siege thing where in that time that it's out competitive, they rework it.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that's what they do, because obviously the maps there are good qualities of the maps, but they need to be reworked. Like Paris, just first point, so obnoxious. Second point, the attacking spawns are so far. It's a really weirdly balanced map. So I hope they rework them. And I'm also just hoping they keep making more big balance changes, like the last patch, like I said. If they start nerfing and buffing heroes faster, I think it will make the game much more enjoyable and less stale. So I hope that's what they do for 2020.
Especially more, whilst it's a big patch, all of the changes are quite minuscule. Like, they brought down Sigma a little bit, they brought Tracer up a little bit. They didn't go like crazy on some of the balance, but if they do that consistently, like once every month or 6 weeks, then that's going to keep stuff interesting for everyone, regardless, right?
Yeah, I mean,
I guess Overwatch League is kind of a problem there too.
Yeah, I mean, I think the amount that they balance is okay. It's just you need to do it more consistently, because you see, like, they made all these changes, nerfs to the current meta comps and buffs to like dive heroes and stuff, but it didn't really change anything because those comps are still so strong. But if you make changes like that more consistently, it gives opportunities for people to find new metas and practice niches a bit more and just come up with new ideas, whereas you make one change and everyone figures out that this comp is still the strongest and everyone just plays it, you know? So by default, if they don't make multiple changes every now and then, every 6 weeks or month or so, then it will just end up being the same meta, and that's why we're in such a stale state in the competitive scene right now. So yeah, I just hope they make more consistent balance changes.
Finally, just on the World Cup stuff, seeing as like we've heard and done it, you made your name this time last year in the World Cup for Team UK. Like, what has been the sort of highlight for you? Like having Ireland here, for example, like getting here and doing their own thing and managing to sort of get up their funding. Like, what for you has been like a good thing about this? Because the World Cup for me is really good, and like I definitely want to see it return this time next year and stuff.
I think despite the issues that we had with like some of the production and stuff, The fact that there were so many teams able to come here and so many teams came for this event, it made it such a good experience. Obviously the playoffs were really enjoyable to watch, but the amount of people that were around, new people that no one's really seen on this sort of stage before, that got a chance to be in the limelight. Like there's a lot of people that aren't in contenders or OWL that scouts will be looking at now because they've done really well. I just think it's great that they have this stage to actually give everyone a chance on, like so everyone can really show what they're worth, and that's how it worked out for me last year, and I'm really glad that more teams and players got to be involved in that this year.
Who was your standout player, just to sort of finish on, that wasn't in the Overwatch League?
I think obviously I'm with bias. I'd say KSP. I mean the guy's the guy's kind of crazy at the Hitscan Heroes. But outside of the UK team, I think Viability was really impressive this season. We scrimmed against Team Netherlands a lot, and they were really impressive. So I think Viability was like a really standout player.
And that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. Do definitely check out Fusions. I think he's going to be streaming a lot more in the off season, but he's also just a standout guy. Big shout out again to Omen for helping support this channel. One of the reasons we were out there at BlizzCon this year was because of them, so big shout out to them. Thanks for watching, take care, we'll see you next time.